long before Leatherface haunted the hills of Texas and hung poor defenseless teenage girls on meat hooks, and long before Buffalo Bill tucked his junk between his legs, looked in the mirror and said, "Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me." There was Norman Bates, whose inspiration was drawn heavily from the infamous demented killer Ed Gein, and of course there was Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, an absolute classic, a rite of passage, and pretty much a required viewing for any fan of the horror and thriller genres. This is a tough movie for me to review. It really is, not only just because on a personal level it's one of my favorites, but even just generally speaking, from a technical level, from the perspective of what can be achieved through filmmaking, storytelling, and its overall cultural impact. Psycho really is, I believe, one of the best films ever made. So, you know, it's hard to not make this sound like the Chris Farley show or something, where it's like, hey, you know that part in Psycho where the girl, she's taking a shower and the old lady kills her? Yeah, that was scary. You think it's the mother, it's not, though. So, I'll try my very best to get across in this review what I think is so good about it. One hugely appealing factor that instantly comes to mind is just how consistently entertaining it is, and how the plot is always moving and always evolving. Even if you go into the movie knowing exactly what the ending is, or even if you've seen it 100 times, its pace and its craft when it comes to telling the story is incredibly impressive. Of course, it starts out good enough, on its own terms, as a woman in trouble kind of thriller, when real estate secretary Marion Crane, played by Vivien Leigh, makes the very sinful decision of stealing a large sum of money from a client in the hopes that she can run away with her boyfriend, who's having financial difficulty and going through a nasty divorce. The urgency and tension Hitchcock brings to those early scenes is top-notch, with some excellent details that add to the character's paranoia. By coincidence, she runs into her boss, and she's on her way out of town. He gives her that suspicious look that sets her off. There's the really intimidating cop she encounters, and if you know Hitchcock and some details of his personal life, you know he's always had issues with cops, so it's a great touch that he brings in his own sense of discomfort and mistrust that is relayed over to us, the audience, and to our perspective, and that's done very well. And what I loved about these earlier scenes the most is Marion Crane's inner monologue that we can hear. Through the voiceovers, we get an idea of her guilt and her paranoia, how she imagines, in her own mind what's going to be happening over the next couple of days once everyone finds out about her crime. Just really well done. And I know some could argue that using voiceover and narration to establish a character's mood and thoughts could be considered a cheat, but in this case it's at least the best possible kind of cheat, and it heightens the tension that's already at a boiling point, and perhaps most importantly, it lets us into Marion Crane's head, and gives us an understanding that she's not entirely a bad person or anything. She feels remorse, she feels fear because of her actions, and she still is a sympathetic character that we still want to follow. Then what's interesting is that the movie calms down. Marion Crane stops at a motel for the night, but it's not just any motel, it's the Bates Motel, where we meet Norman Bates, played by the great Anthony Perkins. And what follows is a great scene where Crane and Bates have a conversation in the study. It has varying degrees of unease. Definitely Marion, and we as the audience, sense something's off about Norman. There's definitely something creepy about him, but not enough, at least for her sake, to anticipate what's going to happen next. It's a terrific scene with great dialogue, great acting, and maybe even the best scene of the movie. Marion takes pity on him and the personal story he's telling of himself and his mother and his sad, lonely life. And in a weird way, there is this connection between the two characters, these two outsiders who share this bizarre but entrancing conversation. And through what she learns of Norman, Marion comes to some reflection and realization upon herself that kind of recognizes the folly of her ways. And in that moment, she decides that it's not too late to turn him back and fix her mistake. And if this were any other movie, this would be the main character's moment of redemption, where everything's resolved and made right and forgiven. But of course, Psycho isn't any other movie, and it's time for the shower. Marion Crane is symbolically cleansing herself of her sins in that shower, and we all know how heavy on the symbolism Hitch can be. And I guess it's a little too late, and I guess she picked the wrong motel to stay in, and her sins are paid for in blood. And I'm sure you don't need me to tell you how great this shower scene is, how shocking it is, and how perfectly executed it is. It's filmed brilliantly and innovatively, especially with some of the tricks that are pulled off in the aftermath. The editing is timed to the T with beat-per-beat expertise in showing everything we need to see, but not too much, and very clever in just cutting away from the violence at just the right split second, so it leaves kind of a subliminal impact at just how gruesome it is and how really our own minds are just filling in the gaps. The sound is great. I think the story is it was a butcher knife cutting into a melon. Bernard Herrmann's score, his incredibly, shriekingly perfect score, it brings the scene to an even higher level of infamy. Just fantastic. I mean, this scene alone, this 90 seconds to 2 minutes of film alone, could serve as an example of filmmaking excellence. There's a good reason why this movie, and this scene in particular, why it's been remembered so fondly to some, and maybe not too fondly for others, for over half a century now. So in that shower scene, that's definitely the film's centerpiece, but here we are, just a little less in the middle of the movie, and the person who we thought to be the main character is dead. So it definitely creates a disorienting effect for the audience, and it's really a ballsy move when you think about it, and you just don't see something like this happen that much in movies today, because definitely by classical standards, it's a storytelling faux pas. But again, the movie does not break its pace. It keeps the story moving and evolving. And in this second half, of course, it becomes more of a mystery film, with Marion's boyfriend, Sam Loomis, played by John Gavin, and her sister, Lila, Vera Miles, as well as a private detective, Arbogast, played by Martin Balsam. Each seek out to find what happened, where's Marion, and for certain interesting parties, where did all that money go? It all leads to the shocking conclusion where, just in case you've been hiding on a rock for the past 50 years and don't know the twist, spoiler alert, it turns out Norman Bates is absolutely insane. Skewed psyche, killed his mother and her lover years ago, has her corpse in the fruit cellar, dresses up like her, half the time thinks like her, and is jealous, and the homicidal mother that she is killed Marion Crane since Norman was becoming attracted to her. And it suggested and found out that she may not be the first that he's killed. Really sick and twisted stuff, and what can I say? I love it. As mentioned earlier, this aspect of Norman Bates' character was very much inspired by the serial killer Ed Gein, who had a particular set of skills for taxidermy himself, though Norman Bates' crimes would probably seem quite tame by comparison to his real-life inspiration. And the film doesn't present this kind of stuff in an in-your-face kind of way, I guess you could say, as other movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Silence of the Lambs. A lot of what we see push the envelope for sure, like the on-screen murders shown and the reveal at the end of the mother's corpse, which was good. But most of it is kept implicit and explained through exposition at the end, much like with the shower scene. A lot of it is left up to our imaginations to fill in the blanks, which arguably makes it scarier and more disturbing. So the movie ends on a very unnerving note, and of course there's that great scene with Norman at the police department, and we hear his inner monologue, but in his mother's voice. With her scheming and plotting, she wouldn't even hurt a fly, which is great. And it is interesting to see a parallel to the earlier scenes with Marion Crane when she's riddled with guilt near the beginning, and it ends with a character just about guilt-free, convinced and totally justifying their crimes. But what else could you expect from such a psycho? The ending is perfect, I think. The movie, needless to say, it is self-contained. It stands on its own, as the classic is. But one could argue that the surface of Norman Bates has only been scratched, and there's a lot more to say about this character. And for fans of this material, there is more out there that explores Norman Bates more, with the sequels starring Anthony Perkins and the new television series, Bates Motel. But I'll get to those later. In addition to the movie's quality, which many would argue speaks for itself, I really do admire just how clever Alfred Hitchcock was in promoting the film, really keeping it hands-on, keeping its secrets safe, taking the extreme measures to keep the novel upon which it was based out of circulation, buying all the copies, things like that. Even going as far to enforcing strict punctuality when it came to the theater screenings, so that it could be ensured audiences would see it from beginning to end to get the full effect. I know it sounds absurd to think of that today, especially given the prices of admission, but people back then would, just pay for a movie, show up whenever. It wasn't unheard of. Because of all that, Hitchcock did all these behind-the-scenes things, and I think all that really helped the movie's reputation. And, it brought an already great movie as is, and kind of assisted in securing its classic status that it has today. Psycho is, in short, a masterpiece, as only a master such as Hitchcock could bring us. It never repeats itself. It's always one step ahead of the audience, and it's always a great joy to watch unfold, whether it's your first time viewing or if you've seen it countless times. There is a defiant legitimacy to it. This isn't a cheap thrills kind of movie. It goes for deeper scares, whether it's something as instinctual as wanting to watch your back the next time you take a shower after watching it, or suspicions that may be caused to linger of seemingly normal people that may hold deep, dark, dangerous secrets. I rate Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho a full 4 stars out of 4. It's a film of great power and engagement, with Hitchcock's trademark thrills, excellent performances, particularly from Anthony Perkins in his signature role. It's a landmark film that's as tremendously entertaining as it is genuinely frightening. So I hope you enjoyed my review. More will come. For the meantime, please comment, rate, subscribe. Leave a comment below if you feel, if you share my enthusiasm for the film. Or even if you don't like the movie, if you hate Psycho. You don't see too many people, so I'd be interested in hearing about that. Follow me on Twitter, @HiThisIsDerek, Tumblr, derek237.tumblr.com. Keep an eye out for more reviews to come. And thank you for watching.